Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 117 of Humanity Rising. Humanity Rising is an initiative of Ubiquity University and over 320 partnering organizations from all over the world that have come together in the midst of this pandemic to provide an open space every day so that people globally can come together and share their experiences of what it's like navigating through this extraordinary event that has put us all into some form of lockdown and engaging in some form of social distancing. How we can take counsel together as to increasing our strategic effectiveness so that we can actually make a difference for the good in the post-pandemic world. As we convene today, the pandemic, as we've been noting, is not going away. It was reported today that in the EU, there are 100,000 new cases every day. And countries like Germany, for example, that did very well during the first wave and thought the pandemic had been essentially dealt with, are now facing increases in cases, not only in major cities, but around the country. Italy, Spain, France, the UK, here in Amsterdam, where I am, we're now in a state of enhanced lockdown and social distancing procedures. And in the United States, President Trump is basically effectuating a policy of no policy at all, that they want to engage in what they call herd immunity. So he's having rallies around the country, even in cities with record levels of COVID-19, without masks, with no social distancing, without any regard to the public policy, even of his own Center for Disease Control and National Institute for Health. And so the reports from the United States today are indicating that over the next several months, by the inauguration of the new president, whoever he will be on January 20, 2021, we could have in the United States between 400,000 and 500,000 deaths. As of today, there's been 215,000 deaths, with about 1,000 deaths per day, but now escalating. It's an extraordinary state of affairs that the President of the United States has become a super spreader. And we're heading into an election in the United States where not only the fate of the Democratic or Republican parties are going to be meted out, but whether democracy is going to endure or not. So the situation within the world of ours, how we find ourselves is, I would say, acute. It's time that we pay attention, and has been noted by a number of people. The pandemic in some ways has been a gift from nature to wake us up, send us to our rooms, tell us to think about it, and hopefully collectively discern a better way forward. So we're in the middle of that conversation. And the mission of Humanity Rising is essentially to contribute to the conversation that everybody in the world is in about how we can create a better world. And that's why the program this week has been so extraordinarily, I would say, seminal. Many of the politicians want to return to business as usual. They want to bounce back. But as Ed Muller, who's the convener of this session, as he was in July, has been saying, it's time to bounce beyond. And not only bounce beyond, but to bounce the beyond, the beyond, to beyond to the third horizon, so that we can bounce toward a world of regeneration, regenerativity, and make sure that we create an abundance on earth that's worthy of our children unto the seventh generation. So thank you everyone for joining us. You're welcome to use the chat function or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We're tracking all your comments and your questions. And I would like to now turn it over to Stuart Cowan, who will commence our program. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jim. Good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world. I'd like to share some images with you. So today's theme is evolution. And this is day 4 of bouncing beyond to a regenerative world. I'm going to place us a little bit in historical context of the universe as a process, something like a 14 billion year process. And then I'll turn it over to Luis and Melina to give us a beautiful reconnection, and then Tina to talk about the Maori perspective on what's being called the donut economics. And then Karen and Carolina will lead us through the flourishing of business, evolution of leadership and education, and then the sense-making closure for today, setting up tomorrow as well. So the image I'm showing is an extraordinary part of the world, my place of origin, Vancouver Island, part of the coastal temperate rainforest on the Pacific coast of North America, a place rich with ancient cultures, 12,000 years at least of continuous inhabitation, and a shared vision among those cultures of gift and abundance, a ceremony called the potlatch, where you give everything away and create kinship and reciprocity with other families around you. This is the way of this coastal rainforest forever, a sense of such abundance that there's gift, there's possibility, there's creativity and story. And I want to remind us that we're part of a shared story, a shared evolutionary story from that first flaring forth of the universe, something like 14 billion years ago. Space, time, emerging from what? We don't know. Being this immense energy confined to a single point, expanding more rapidly than we can possibly comprehend, gradually cooling off from that intense pure energy, differentiating into protons and neutrons and electrons and the first hydrogen atoms forming, and eventually swirling together, falling into each other, forming stars. And those stars twinkling together in vast galaxies like our beautiful Milky Way, truly the origin of life, because it takes generations of stars to crunch and liquefy hydrogen into all the heavier elements like carbon and oxygen that we literally need to live. So we are the result of many generations of stars breathing, finally giving every last fiber of their being as they collapse and explode in a supernova, gathered up by all of those other stars nearby to form new generations. And so our solar system, far, far out in the Milky Way, the result of many generations of stars freely giving their heavier elements so that life can build from carbon and oxygen and nitrogen and form this immensity of diversity on this planet. We know life is at least 3.8 billion years old on Earth, and it's one story. We're all descended from early living cells. We're all connected. We're all part of that shared process that connects us to the stars, the galaxies, back to that flaring forth of the universe itself. And in this 3.8 billion years, something like 10 to 50 million species, we don't know, have differentiated. And my good friend Brian Swim, the cosmologist, says that there are three key processes: autopoiesis, differentiation, and communion. He wrote a beautiful book called The Universe Story with Thomas Berry, a brilliant theologian who actually called himself a geologian, a theologian of the earth. And so those key processes, differentiation, this incredible process of diversity, of species, of cultures, of ways that life comes into this world. The autopoiesis means self-organization, living systems, the way that life organizes itself, the way that life connects through to other life. This beautiful, profound theory developed by two Chilean scientists, Francisco Varela, who sadly has passed, and Humberto Maturana, who's 91, still very active, working near Santiago, Chile, whose latest work is focused on cognition as fundamentally a process of love, that as biological beings, our first experiences, our first cognition is falling in love with our family members, those around us. And he believes that that is the core cognitive process for all life when we reconnect with our deepest selves. So we're part of this magnificent shared story. And on this planet, there's been an immense flowering of what we might call biocultural diversity, the nexus, the meeting place between cultural diversity and biological diversity in all of its forms. This is a biocultural map of the world. The darker areas indicate greater plant diversity. The bright spots indicate different linguistic groups. And you can see they match up beautifully. That where there's greater plant diversity and also correlated with animal diversity, fungal diversity, viral diversity, bacterial diversity, where all of that is at its highest, there's also a greater differentiation of languages and cultures. The other interesting thing is that the greatest concentration of biocultural diversity is literally at the equator in South America and Africa, Southeast Asia, and it literally slowly declines as you go north and south from the equator. We don't know exactly why, but we think it has something to do with that steady amount of daylight each year, and particularly in areas that have steady moisture year round. So this is the true wealth of the planet. This is what we need to value. There's no one economic theory. There's no one word or theme or meme. This is the diversity of the world that we need to allow to flourish, that we need to stand back and create a space for. So what is the natural unit of regenerating the world? Take your pick, start anywhere that calls to you. It could be your watershed, literally defined by the land that drains, that flows, that gives its water to a given river that flows out to the ocean. It could be a food shed. You're connected to the growing of bountiful food. It could be a fiber shed connected to the making of beautiful textiles and clothing. It could be indigenous territories, cultural landscapes, bioregions, which are a beautiful mesh of cultural and ecological context. It could be a mountain range that you love, the Andes I'm called to. It could be grasslands. It could be an island, could be your island. It could be the organizations that you work with. It could be even building ecosystems of organizations. And ultimately, it's about nested living systems. We heard beautifully from Ian over the last few days about 3 horizons. And he's literally created this beautiful empty mural ready to be populated from the insights we've had this week and from the work we'll all be doing together the next few weeks. To remind you of 3 horizons, the red is where we are at the moment, this way of thinking and being, and largely the conditions around us. We know it needs to fade away. We know that there are important legacy elements we'll carry with us on that journey. So you can see the red gradually declining. The green is Horizon 3. It's that infinite possibility that we're dreaming into this week and beyond. And the blue is that tenuous, delicate, supporting way of being, the prototypes, the initiatives that can connect us from where we are. We have to start where we are with our mindset, with the world around us. We have to start there and build bridges to Horizon 3, bridges of every kind, ecological villages, products that just compost at the end of their life and regenerate the earth that they fall into, regenerative schools, regenerative bioregions, regenerative organizations, initiatives of all kinds. That's the fertile connectivity between where we are now and Horizon 3. And that's what this week is about. Regenerative education, ultimately, it's a mycelium. It's not about the 5 top universities in the world broadcasting, downloading the very themes that have gotten us into so much trouble. It's about all of us recreating, rebuilding together the mycelium, which is that deep interconnecting set of fungal roots that nourish the soil, that nourishes the world. We have to rebuild the mycelium, and we have to do it in a spirit of respect, reciprocity. There's no one center for this. It is all of us, in all of our places, in all of our regions, learning, supporting, nurturing any tiny fiber of possibility. The growing tip of mycelium is called a hypha. We are the hypha in this call. We are those growing tips of the mycelium connecting to each other, nourishing the soil, learning to be human in a more than human world. That's our task. At 3 levels, the work on the self, the heart, the will, the mind, the 7 chakras, all the ways that we can think about this, of being fully human, which of course means falling in love outward with all of life as well. And the 2nd level, the learning communities, learning to be respectful in our teams, in our organizations, our families, our hanas. And of course, level 3, the nested living systems, that we can see all of these different systems at all these different levels of scale and find ways to nourish them and support them and interconnect them. And to be in these 3 levels all at once is possibly part of becoming regenerative communities, part of moving towards regenerative culture. And this is here. There are these mycelial networks forming. Bounce Beyond, it's a beautiful initiative that we've been hearing about this week to emerge with momentum, strength, determination after COVID, to bounce beyond into a world that truly flourishes for all. Ubiquity University, graciously hosting Humanity Rising. Edward's work with the University for International Cooperation focused on regenerative development. The Regenerative Communities Network, also co-hosting this week. Global Eco Villages Network, Ecoversities, Presencing Institute, Otto Scharmer's work. And to just give one example of where this mycelial activity is happening, the Regenerative Communities Network starts with the veins, the contours of this living planet. This image is a watershed image. You're not seeing national boundaries. You're seeing these beautiful, large-scale watersheds in the world. You can see a huge purple area in South America, key part of the Amazon watershed. You can see the vast Mississippi River basin in the United States. These are the veins of the world. And the Regenerative Communities Network has a vision of being a mosaic of place-sourced, bioculturally diverse and regenerative economies that are fractally linked across scales, from individuals to communities and villages, great cities, out to the watersheds, out to the continents, the islands, and to the biosphere itself, all of life. So the mission is to be a global learning and action network to support place source transformation towards regenerative economies. And following the beautiful work of Margaret Wheatley, when a network is emerging, you can name it just to give it some way of finding itself, just to help the mycelium grow towards itself and sense that something is there. That's what we're doing this week. We're trying to just connect those of us and the thousands of organizations and initiatives that we're connected to connect them to each other, to realize we're not alone, and to nourish all of this effort and to illuminate it, to build a movement. It's growing quickly, 15 bioregional collaboratives on 4 continents, Brazil, Costa Rica, Mexico, Nepal, UK, US, Canada, Colombia, and 75 emerging that would like to join. So Ugo is in this picture in the foreground, and as usual, orchestrating delight for all of us. So 4 levels of learning in this network. And as we think about regeneration, there's so many levels of this, of learning to be human again, learning to fall in love with the world. So the learning within each bioregion, the effort to reweave and connect within a given place, the peer-to-peer learning as things get hard and difficult in one place and you give up and like, this is crazy. Horizon 1 is overwhelming. There's no path through. You talk to your neighboring bioregion or a bioregion across the world and realize there's a path. I haven't found a single blocker that hasn't been solved by at least a few bioregions. There is a path through. And of course, building together shared infrastructure for place-based regeneration, not just within one network. It's a vast effort. It's the work of our time. It's the core of regenerative education. How do we figure out how to do systems mapping? How do we figure out to rewire capital so that it's not abstract and extractive? So capital is rewired, regrounded, rerouted. How do we transition that immense Horizon 1 locked in capital, create Horizon 2 pathways to unlock it and let it nourish and spread throughout all of life, wherever it's needed? So I encourage you to participate actively today and tomorrow. We've mentioned these hashtags. Please use hashtag regen or bounce beyond. We'll be monitoring those feeds, looking for themes, ideas, questions. If you're lucky enough to be in the Zoom for this call, please ask things, comment, suggest lines of inquiry in the chat. And we've also created an experimental shared document, and the link is there. You can go to this document, you can comment, you can add ideas, questions, resources, and so forth. And as a bridge to the wonderful reconnection that Louisa and Melina will offer us, I'd like to share a poem by Ted Hughes. And he was one of the great poet laureates of Britain. And this poem is called That Morning, and it's about the reconnection to life. Solemn to stand there in the pollen light, waist deep in wild salmon, swaying mast as from the hand of God. There, the body separated, golden and imperishable. From its doubting thought, a spirit beacon lit by the power of the salmon that came on, and kept on coming, as if we flew slowly, their formations lifting us towards some dazzle of blessing. One wrong thought might darken, as if the fallen world and salmon were over, as if these were the imperishable fish that had let the world pass away. There, in a mauve light of drifted lupins, they hung in the cupped hands of mountains, made of tingling atoms. It had happened. Then, for a sign that we were where we were, 2 gold bears came down and swam like men beside us, and dived like children, and stood in deep water as on a throne, eating pure salmon off their talons. So we found the end of our journey. So we stood alive in the river of light among the creatures of light. Creatures of light.
And as creatures as light, I want you to be open to a reconnection process now with these words of deeply connection to nature, to Mother Nature. And try to, if you want to close your eyes or just pull down your sight a little bit, just to go inside yourself and give you the opportunity to see, where are you? Where are you right now? Who are you? Are you your body? Or is it part of your experience here on earth? Are you your thoughts? Or they are part of this experience on earth? Are you your feelings? Or are they a navigation tool on this earth? Just witness your experience of being alive. The past is when you were you, and the future, you will be you. You are you, and you are part of this planet, of this essence. So hold yourself there. Hold yourself, just acknowledging and observing and witnessing your participation on the planet. And I want you to think to yourself and to repeat to yourself the following words. I host everything who I've been, who I will be, and who I am now, to fully participate with my essence into our collective evolution. I understand how to evolve, and I feel life in myself, and I am fulfilled being part of this evolution with Mother Earth. We were conceived, so thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Mom. We are developing now by the force of life, and we want to keep doing this.
And how does the force of life become? We come from the magic of a very sublime moment. And this magic brings life to gestation. It allows all to become. And it starts similar in almost all species, even in plants. It all starts with one cell, one unique cell that is magical. And this cell divides into two, then it divides into 4, then it divides into 16, 32, 64, 128, and it keeps on dividing and dividing from one single cell. It divides until it forms clusters of cells that recognize each other and recognize the need for them to be together. And that's how cells start specializing and grouping into what later forms as organs and specialized functions in different beings, all coming from one single cell that evolves into a complex organism full of life and full of systems that work together collectively for the health of that single individual. And this is the magic of life. This happens in humans, this happens in reptiles, this happens in lions and all of life in the planet. So we really need to go down to our essence. We are one cell. We are one cell that has the intelligence of all the cells. We are one individual that has the intelligence of all individuals. But we need to connect to that intelligence, that collective wisdom that allows us to become one huge organism in function of life and regeneration. If we think of the earth is not very different from the womb that gave the possibility for that cell to evolve into a complex organism. The earth in itself came from one single fragment of matter and evolved to the point where the conditions were appropriate for life. Then the cell emerged, that single cell, the same single cell that represents gestation of ourselves in the wombs of our mothers. And that cell started evolving, multiplying, dividing, and looking to specialize into different organisms, different plants, different animals, different fungi. All organisms coexisting in one planet, the Earth, our mother. Planet Earth is actually one huge organism that is quite complex and where all individuals and cells within it should be in function of life and should be in function of collectively and collaboratively creating the conditions for us to be able to thrive together and to thrive in the present and the future. Our intent as humans is fundamental to reconnect us back to that essence of one cell, the essence of one being, the essence of one planet, the essence of our Earth.
And that's why Mother Nature, Mother Earth is pregnant now. And it is pregnant with our evolutionary step, with another human species. And we are being part of that pregnancy. And we are being called to listen what our mother wants from us to evolve to. She's dreaming us. She's taking care of this baby who we are in her hands. So I deeply appreciate your time and attend this invitation again to reconnect with that dream of our mother. And this dream has been dreamt by many people and many cultures on the world. So we want to welcome today a person who is part of this wisdom from Mother Earth. And we want to welcome Taina. She has been working with the models and how we can create another economy. And she will be presenting us a version of this wisdom and knowledge to everybody, to how we can bring the donuts economic model from the perspective of the Maori people. We are very honored to have you here, Taina, today. So please, if you want to share your screen or open your mic, thank you.
Kia ora, everyone. I hope my mic is open. That's operating sufficiently for everyone.
You're good.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's wonderful. Tuatahi, kai te mihi ake kia tātou. Kia ora rawa atu tātou katoa. I'd just like to greet us all warmly in the Indigenous language of New Zealand Māori, and in particular my own specific tribal territory, which is Ngai Tūhoi. Only a short 6 years ago, it was known worldwide as a national park, which is completely incorrect, and has been, I guess, inaccurately referred to in that manner for the last 100 years. And so 6 years ago, we celebrated breaking beyond that, breaking beyond the clinical definitions and interpretations of our mother-anchored forest home. So our homeland, I live in the forest, and so pleased to make a Mother Earth and Sky Father connection to all participants on this session this morning. My name is Taina. I belong to several New Zealand-based Māori tribal affiliations, but my principal tribe is known throughout the world as Ngai Tūhoi. I'm basically and generally geographically located in the centre of the northern part of New Zealand. My talk this morning and thank you to the previous speaker this morning. That was deeply poignant and touching and mindful and heartful. To receive those messages from vast distances across the globe and the planet, and yet we can only be a heartbeat and a pulse away from each other on such a technology. I thank you for that. This morning I want to I want to work very hard not to be too complicated or complex about what I share with you in terms of a Tūhoi Māori Indigenous pair of lenses or binocular view of my very localized place first, because from a Tūhoi point of view, I think the vibrational speak and voice of Papa Tuanuku, and she is that is the name we give her, Mother Earth. We give her the name Papa Tuanuku, and we give the name Rangi Nui to Sky Father. Papa meaning grounded and anchored. It also means foundation. Tua means beyond, and nuku means to move, to pulsate. So Papa Tuanuku, that name made up of those three specific components in that name and that word, basically means a living, breathing organism with a soul and a mind. Rangi Nui, the first part of that word, rangi, means the vast and boundless skies, not just one sky, but multiple skies. And nui means vast or gigantic, enormous, limitless. So those are the two names that we give our primordial parents. I want to be able to share, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation as such, but I have a kind of series of images. So the first image I would like to exhibit to us and display to us all is in fact an image of I might need to just be able to share that. My first image is in fact an image of our ancestral house. Okay, I'm just, won't be a moment. Oh, interestingly enough, it seems that the donut or the takarangi is rearing itself. So I think it's asking me to present it first.
Try it again, Tina.
I will. Okay. So I'm hoping that everybody can see this clearly.
Yes, we can see it.
That's good. That's visible to everybody. That's fantastic. The interesting thing about, and I'll start with the donut, and perhaps at some point I might be able to locate the ancestral house after this. So this, I guess, is a very abstract view of what is currently referred to as the donut model that most people, I think, across the world now are familiar with. We don't refer to the this particular spiral design or motif as a donut. And one of the reasons, I think the donut has its place, and it has its place in its particular location and in its particular place of design and development, and where it was conscientized and normalized in various communities, largely in the European states of the world. Having cited that only perhaps 2 years ago, I was approached by the designer of that particular model and those who have found it very useful in different parts of the world, and that's great. I think that's a celebration, that the donut has a design and it has a genealogical connection, or a whakapapa, what we refer to as a whakapapa. It has a genealogical connection and it's rooted in a particular locale and location and place, and it's being developed and created from a particular consciousness. And that's I think that's fine. That's absolutely fine. What it did speak to me about as a Tūhoe woman and a Māori Indigenous person from New Zealand was that there were some major differences if I was to view it from within the eyes of a Tūhoe community and allow it to grow and to organically provide some insight that was useful and meaningful for the communities, the Indigenous communities of New Zealand. Granted, we are only one of perhaps nearly 200 tribes of New Zealand. So this is what immediately conjured in the minds of Māori people, some Māori people, and in particular my mind as a Tūhoe Indigenous woman. This particular motif speaks to spiralism. The donut had a pulse and a rhythm and a soul of its own. It didn't immediately resonate with a New Zealand Indigenous view of how we saw a regenerative and naturally growing world and all the facets of that world, including human beings. So the spiral was something that was inspired, and it wasn't difficult to actually locate because most of our ancestral houses are designed using what we refer to as the takarangi or the spiral design. So it's a carving design that's etched on the ancestral houses that proliferate the landscapes of New Zealand. So this is known as a takarangi, and the difference between that and the donut is that a takarangi is not a closed circle. And that was probably one of the most fundamental aspects when we reimagined the donut and gave it a consciousness that was born and emanated from within the soul of an Indigenous Tūhoe mind. So imperative to us was that the whole circularness of the takarangi was present, and that it was open not only throughout the concentric circles, in between the concentric circles of the takarangi it was open, but both ends were open as well. And so as we continued to reimagine this, it was really important for us to understand that the takarangi was made of two unique and distinct spirals that intertwined with each other. And on our ancestral homes, in particular where I'm from, one of my ancestral homes, we have two that are built on the same homeland, land base. They are adorned prolifically with the takarangi design. The two spirals that form the body of the takarangi, or the spiral, is the first area, the black area. Well, you'll see it coloured as black there, but it's in fact a dark green. We refer to that first spiral as Ranginui as Sky Father. That's what in fact it represents. And then the reddish crimsony spiral that interlocks with it is in fact Papa Tuanuku, or Earth Mother. So the two spirals interlock, but they're open. And it's really imperative for us to have understood ourselves as Tūhoe Indigenous people that the two spirals interlock but remain open, both in between, the spaces in between remain open, because they are spaces that allow the emanation of energy. And then the spiral going downwardly and moving back up, constantly moving through and moving back up the spiral, is an ongoing and perpetual force of energy, of many energies. The energy throughout a spiral for us depicts perpetuation, number one, and secondly, it represents growing, a growing and oscillating energy. And as it moves closer to the center of the spiral, it becomes incredibly potent. In between the spiral, or the center, right in the middle, the center where the energy becomes most potent, we refer to that as the pito. And the word we use for pito is also the center of a flax plant. And in the center of a flax plant, it's either the mother is referred to as the pito or the fito of the flax. And so too do we refer to the takarangi or the spiral. The center of the spiral is the mother, is the pito or the fito, as well as being one of the interconnecting spirals, which is Papa Tuanuku. So I guess in a nutshell, in a very cursory way and a broad overview, this is the design phase. And within the design phase is encoded the meanings of the spiral. At the top there, raupunga, the word raupunga means beaded edges, and you'll see the three beads that are intervaled throughout the concentric circles as the spiral moves downwardly and back up to the top. The beaded areas we see and we represent as corridors. They're corridors that allows us to move not only between corridors of energy, but they allow us to move from one concentric circle of enlightenment to another. We can also use the corridor as a passageway or a waiting room where we're permitted to contemplate, to meditate, to mediate, and to develop new thought and consciousness. And then we are permitted to move to another corridor in the spiral. So the takarangi for us spoke to many different ways of not only viewing the world and the planet and understanding the pulsing and the voice of Ranginui in Papa Tuanuku. It permitted us to also move through the corridors in between the concentric circles so we become one with that consciousness. So this is a larger version of that spiral as we continued to evolve and support the evolution of the takarangi. That just gives, I think, a bit more of a 3D. It's an attempt to give a bit more of a 3D perspective on how we see the moving energies throughout the spiral. The spaces in between the concentric circles that you see resulting from the interlocking spiral, the two interlocking spirals, the spaces in between, not the beaded corridors, what we call the beaded corridors, but the spaces in between the beaded corridors, and the spaces that form as a result of being, the interlocking spirals, we refer to as the houses of enlightenment. So as we're permitted to move between the corridors into the spaces between the spirals, it's in fact the spirals that allow us to see the spaces of enlightenment. And then, of course, we've taken that particular design, that very basic fundamental design, and its pulsating energy and commitments and loyalties and convictions, and its love and its enlightenment and its poignant reminders, its collective memory. We've shifted that energy into really what we call our 101 version. We do have a V8 version now, but our 101 version of what some still refer to as the donut, but it is enormously inefficient to be referring to it as a donut, because in fact its whole being and body and soul and consciousness derives and originates from within the lens of a New Zealand Indigenous point of view. So some of the aspects of the environment, the physical environment, the natural environment, the environment born of rangi and papa, including the species we call human beings, something that we did slightly differently to the donut was in fact relocate and reposition all the entire world of the entire natural world. We repositioned into the center of the takarangi in this way, and I just want to give a friendly reminder that this is a work still in progress. We are still developing and coming to and understanding ourselves of how the takarangi might embrace and help others to understand what we mean by the intersecting spirals, by the converging energies, and why we have positioned all natural and biospheric assets, if you like, inverted commas, we call it taonga, why we have located all that taonga or asset in the centre, and largely because those are the aspects of our living world that require the most attention at this point in time. So we have positioned all the natural taonga or natural asset in the centre where the energy is the most potent. We have positioned people outside of that, outside in the outer circles where the energy still exists, but not to the same intensity. And then the green part in the center between the human space, if you like, and the natural space, the natural environmental space, is known as oranga ihonui, or just te ihonui. And that word for us means, te ihonui for us means the umbilical cord. So the umbilical cord is where we strike a balance. When we come into balance, the natural world and human beings, when our behaviors and our consciousness come into balance with each other, and we meet in a place where we agree, we are in agreement, then my people refer to that as te iho nui, where there is a balance of mind, soul, body, and consciousness. And then what emanates from that place is the promise that we have committed to each other's care. That it invokes an energy and a consciousness that causes me as a human being to commit to the care of Mother Earth and commit to the care of Sky Father. And that our consciousness has met in a place where we are at peace and we are still with a mutual understanding and with a mutual agreement of that. That's the place of te iho nui, and the place that we constantly on a daily basis inside our spiritual rituals and spiritual fortitude as an Indigenous people, we strive to seek out, actively seek out and consciously and spiritually seek that place and support all living things to be in that place with us. That is the iho nui. The side bars, you can see those bars kind of stretching out towards the left side of the spiral, is the tua papa o te ora. Tua papa o te ora, which we refer to as social well-being, where our humanness is teetering on the periphery at this point in time. And we understand that our wellness, the blue area, is the place where we are nearing te iho nui, and it gives us a vision and a goal towards te iho nui, which is the balance and wellness of all things. The red motif, or little koru, what we call a koru or curved motif, which is coloured crimson, and it's the third little stretched arm, if you like, beneath te iho nui, is referred to as te hātua mātangi. And the hātua mātangi is an area we've referred to as the last breath. So that area for the time being for us is an indicative area. It's an indicator to us when we have pushed the life, the ecological life, and the consciousness and the spiritual life of the natural world beyond its ability to tolerate those things. And it is teetering on its last breath. We refer to that as an Indigenous people as te hātua mātangi, or literally the last breath. So there's all sorts of warning signs and alarms that tell us when the natural environment in this biosphere is signifying to us that its last breath is nearing, or it's about to touch the edge of its last breath. And I think we have started to experience that recently as a human race. And our collective memory, and sometimes our individual memories and our communities across the planet, our memories, we have been forced to take our memories back to understand and re-educate ourselves to the language, to the signs, and to the signposts that Mother Nature and Sky Father have possessed time immemorial, but we have forgotten how to read them. So the Hātua Mātangi, the edge of the last breath, is where we find our collective memory together with the natural world, and we start to teach and relearn the language of the natural world again. So I think in a very summarized way, that is it's not the donut. I guess that's the main message I want to be able to articulate, that it's definitely not a donut, but it's a spiral. And it's referred by us and given the name of takarangi. And takarangi literally means the two interlocking spirals, which is Mother Earth and Sky Father. If I leave that just for a moment, because I think that's, I won't get any more complicated or complex than that, and I'm sure that's probably sufficient for us to come to an understanding of how a Tūhoe or a Māori New Zealand-based Indigenous people would see how circles might be arranged or rearranged inside our understanding of circular. If I just reach back for another image for a moment.
Dana, I just wish, while you're
Yes.
putting that screen up, to thank you deeply for getting up before 4 a.m. to be with us. We were really sad you couldn't be with us the first day, but this is truly inspiring. This is a fundamental for what we are trying to do here. And I really appreciate it. I think it just got us all into a spiral movement in our insides and with our connection to Mother Earth so deeply and so profoundly that I'm just speechless. I had to stand up. I couldn't stay sitting in the chair listening to you. I had to stand up and put my feet on the ground and feel the energy going through my head up to the universe. So thank you so much. Do you still have something to present? We actually need to move a little bit onto the program, but
Okay.
we can
just very quickly. I think just very quickly.
Yes.
This is probably, I'm not sure if everybody can see this.
Yes.
Okay, so this is an example of one of my ancestral homes. There are many of them across the landscapes of New Zealand. And you'll find on what they refer to as the maihi or the barge boards of this house. Prolific here. All these spaces here are in fact takarangi, and this is what has inspired our design. They come directly off our ancestral home, and of course all our ancestral homes, this particular one is a female. Most of them are males, represented as males, but the two ancestral homes where I am from are female, and they are adorned with the takarangi design. Without further ado, that's probably helps to conclude the spiral version, if you like, of an Indigenous insight. Thank you very much. I'm grateful for the time. I
don't know how to thank you. I'm just speechless. My my brain doesn't find words to describe what I'm feeling right now, Tanya. So really thank you. It's the power of the image that can tell such a story, such a powerful story, and bring so many different dimensions into one sight, one image that really, after listening to you, I just see it in a totally different perspective. And I think that is what is in common with Kate's donut, that in one image, you combine many, many different aspects that in our Western science and institutionality so reduced to components and to disciplines. And in order to reinvent education for a regenerative world, we need to break away from that reductionist vision. And your spiral is the most integrated, it's not, I can't even say image, the most integrated feeling of unitedness, planetary unitedness that can move us forward. So thank you so much, really. Yes. And please stay on with us. I think we'll have a good discussion. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll pass it on to Karen, please.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you, Edward, for your words of gratitude and appreciation to Tina, and thank you so much. And it seems so important that she was here today, Tina, that you were here today with us, because as life would have it, you couldn't be with us on Monday, but today was even more important because today's theme is evolution. And if we are to really recognise that we are part of the evolution, as you so beautifully expressed, through Mother Earth and Father Sky, and we are part of that system in that spiral. It was so perfect that you were here today. So thank you so much. So moving. And so just pausing for a second to really just take that in, into our bodies, into our hearts, into our minds. And it's so beyond mind. So thank you. The next conversation planned for today was about flourishing enterprise or flourishing business. And one of the things, Carolina and I are going to speak to that and for a short time. And one of the things that's important that we want to hold it in context for today is that in order to have our institutions, our organizations, whether it's from being a social entrepreneur, the head of an organization, a charity, as working in government or politics, wherever we are in a leadership role, we have to evolve through our education into new models, new understandings of what leadership is, because the traditional one has failed us. It has been led under patriarchy. It has been led by predominantly men. And now, as Tina so beautifully put it, as we need to change and we need to evolve into new models, new understandings, new context. And the way we can access that is to exactly what we've been talking about all week, is to bring in regenerative education so that leaders of the future and our current leaders bring the youth, bring a new mindset, bring a new level of consciousness into, one, the existing systems, but also develop new systems, new structures, new policies from the inner work that's needed, as Tina so beautifully said today, where mind, body, soul, and consciousness is integrated into the learning process. How do we understand the full human system and shift consciousness? So I'd like to ask Carolina, my dear friend, and to begin the conversation, and then I'll pick up when she completes. Please, Carolina.
Thank you so much. A little bit like Edward, I'm still processing, and yeah, what a journey. And it sounds almost counterintuitive to try to go into the business space where there are so many structures that seem so unnatural, right? From the organizational charts and the boxes, and we have so we have developed so many boxes and so many isolated disciplines that come from the education. But as I see it, we have to work in parallel, the education of the new generations with the business leaders that are already out there. So to me, it was a challenge. How can I reach that potential that business leaders have in this transformation? How do I get to them, or how do I invite them into being part of a Horizon 2 plus, and letting them know that there is a Horizon 3 that they can start visualizing. So not sure what part of my work to share, as I've been so touched by starting with Stuart. The whole session has been very nice. But I think for me, as a context, the journey has been from working at a very young age in my family business with my dad, who was a systems thinker, and understanding what I'm only understanding now, that, you know, to me, business was a second home. I was 13 years old when I started going to office to see what all the excitement was about. And it was only later that I learned about these structures, right? So Karen, help me out with the time and let me know when time starts getting short on us. Share screen, give me 1 second. So this is here. These are very simplistic diagrams. You see the difference with the with the spiral of Tyler.
Carolina, would you move your square up to the upper right so people can see the diagrams?
Oh yeah, that one, right? Okay. So the one on the left is what they taught me in university when I was studying at university. So business was at the center, and it had a relationship with society and a relationship with nature. And I went to a very fancy, structured university, the best one in Latin America. Then when I did my master's, another very fancy university, second best university, whatever. And they taught me the one on the middle. They taught me that there was a very strong relationship between business and society and nature. Between the second and the third is when I discovered biomimicry, which is one of the many tools, but one that I really reconnected me with what I had learned as a child, which is there is nature, humans occupy 0.0001% in terms of the total species, and we've been around life for 0.00001%. And business is a social construct. So the reason why I like this very simplistic business-like diagram is because it shows us that the more we align to this truth, the more we have life force on our back. The more we misalign, the more we destroy conditions for life, including the human life. So throughout my career, I've been looking at these patterns of companies that bring nature into themselves, so into their structures, into their mindsets, into the flow of their money, into the behaviors they have, and trying to hit the point where I can connect to those business leaders. So, and to me, I think that triggering point, I will come back to this, is the financial piece. The financial piece is where I want to think as an elevated purpose that I have in all this journey, which is can the moment a business leader heals its critical mind of what it holds them back to move towards regeneration, then they release this lock they have in terms of, well, we have to produce profit. And then they can start seeing their business as a system that has health and that has gradients of health, and that those gradients of health in the degenerative mode and even in the sustainable mode don't even exist in the natural world, right? So if I can trigger that as a learning process, that I can help them see money as a nutrient, as a nutrient that has a purpose to create life, and that it has to be a good flow in that system. It cannot be too slow because it stagnates, just like water. It reduces life. It cannot go too fast. If it goes too fast, then it erodes the land around it. So how can I help them visualize, now that you were saying this piece, Edward, about images and the power of images? So what I do, I'm trying to condense a lot of information here, but is to help them see that when they take sustainability initiatives in isolation, their connection, their interconnectedness within the system is very low. So their return on investment is going to be very low. It's going to be short term. When we move to the whole space of ESG, so I used to be an analyst at the parent company of some Dow Jones sustainability indexes, and they understand these links very well, which is every silo of the business, how does it connect to my bottom line, right? These are investors and they are still having profit as a purpose for a business. Very misaligned to the way nature works, of course. But following the same logic, if they're able to see that these interconnections become even stronger when you have regenerative properties, then you have a more interconnected, like Uwe was talking about the second day, more intelligent system, more robust and resilient system that create reinforcing loops towards health. And this sounds beautiful, but there is enough, and this is what I also wanted to share. Karen, again, pin me in how I'm doing with time, but what we want to accomplish, and my work, I think, is to help them really see their business as a living system, one that we want health, abundance in every sense, in the financial sense, in the fertility sense, in the creation of life sense, and that they understand that if they want to be a species or a system that does not go into the extinction pool like many have before us, that didn't follow this way of the same way that life has evolved, which is a business should grow based on how much impact, positive impact it creates. And by positive impact, I mean creates conditions conducive to life. So if it's really aligned with the way life works, the business should attract most revenue when it creates the most life. And when it creates the most conditions conducive to life, it creates the most revenue for everyone and abundance in many other ways. So such a system is operating in this optimum performance, becomes conscious. And this is what we want. And this is the closest thing I experienced was when I was a kid and I was in that office, which was very much in the industrial sector, but I could feel, I could sense those flows. I could sense how one thing affected the other. I could just understand in the way of a child that was just everything that's there and how it interconnects, right? So if we're able to share this with business leaders, I think it's the difference between them being on horizon 2 negative to horizon 2 positive. And very close to closing my message is, this is already happening for those of us that still have the critical mind in our heads. We have the mainstream indexes, we have sustainability indexes that show a high return on investment. We've seen the development of new life mimicking indexes The LAMP index was created by my dear mentor, Jay Bragdon. And what he did was he looked at companies that mimic life and how well they were doing in the financial part and the sustainability part. We're still talking mainstream, but it's a step forward. And even more, he was able to find the nestedness of these principles. So he found that a company that mimics life, when there is a critical mass of companies that mimic life, they create economies that mimic life. And economies that mimic life in their structures, in their governance, in their thinking, they create conditions for companies that mimic life to emerge. So we have this nestedness of business and economics that follow this pattern. So of course we're looking for the ideal, the horizon 3, which is bioregions, and the money flow should stay in those regions. But I think it's good to acknowledge the good steps that we're taking in that direction, the good heart people that need tools to move there, and making it, there are, I know many throughout my career that would appreciate that they already have a very warm, open heart, and that what they need is some sort of release to their critical mind so they can move forwards towards regeneration, because like any other living system in nature, it's meant to be regenerative. To me, it's more what's holding them back and releasing that, unleashing that potential to get there. I have more, but I want to be grounded by Karen. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Carolina, because we thank you so much. That was so beautiful, and it's such a privilege to be talking to you and with you about business. And so thank you for that inquiry and the structures and systems and how we can actually look through the models to turn something around. I'm going to come into the conversation from quite a different perspective, but it's very correlated and connected to how you've spoken. And for me, back in the 80s, when I trained as a holistic alternative care practitioner, as a healer, I decided somewhere in me, that it was my intuition, that essential oils, which are the gift from Mother Nature, were the healers that we'd been given, but we weren't paying attention to. We were using allopathic medicine and the traditional forms of medicine that had come into and to be institutionalized in our system. And so I introduced and started a company from kitchen tabletop with my family, and started to build that company from the basis of returning healing to the home for women to be able to use natural care via essential oils. And it was actually Steiner's, many of you have heard me speak about my background in anthroposophy, and it was actually Steiner that spoke about the threefold nature of the human being and the threefold nature of the plant, and how the plant's leaf system is perfectly correlated to our lungs, the blossoms to our head, which is the final expression where we speak from, where we think from, and the blossoms are the oils and the extract in the plants. It's the burst forth, the final expression in the plant. And the root system is our intestines. So the plant is actually perfectly correlated as a healing modality to the human system. And on that basis, in business, because I had no business degree and no business understanding, our business was basically built on community and my spiritual practices. So back in the 80s, we meditated every day. My team of 85 staff, and we exported to 5 countries. It became a global business. But out of the 85 people that worked in our head office, 70 of them were women. And I think when I look back, I'm sure that was part of the success of the business. And importantly, it was something that brought the business alive to hearts and minds when women felt that they could self-care with a modality that healed them, but also had access to healing their families. So for me, the intuitive nature of business, the intuitive connection to plants and to Mother Earth, as you've just spoken of, Carolina, is so critical to our regeneration of our leadership and our education and our organisations. So fast forward all these years, I went from oils out of plants to oils out of the ground and worked in the extractive industries with BHP Billiton, Talisman Oil and Gas, and the very big corporates as a business consultant. And what I witnessed, where I felt that these messages and this important acknowledgement of our earth and the transformation that was needed in leadership and organisations, was I couldn't make a dent in that. One, as a woman, I couldn't make a dent in that because it was very dominant in the masculine. I was often only the only woman in the room. And because of my aromatherapy background, my business background wasn't considered. So I was considered flaky and soft and not relevant in some instances. So it was a tough 6-7 years that I worked in that corporate environment until I realised that what was at the heart of an organisation was the wellbeing of people. And so business purpose was the thing that actually made my company so successful, where everyone believed in the vision and in the purpose and that it made a difference in people's lives. And I think that's critical, that we educate our young people into creating something that's meaningful for them, that they can put their life and their devotion and their reverence behind, and that they're proud that they'll bring into the world. And now, as I've shifted my career focus and started the Flourish Initiative, I did a project with a very large commercial airline here in 2018, where the business saw that they were failing because they were losing the hearts and minds of their people. And my team and I ran 49 two-day programs. We trained 1,600 leaders in a workshop called Flourish. And flourishing was about beyond well-being, because the dictionary definition of well-being, when companies attempt to bring that into their organisation, the dictionary definition is that when we're happy and comfortable and well. So I think the explosion that you're speaking about and the evolution of business now, Carolina, that you've so brilliantly placed in structure and a new sense of business, is that we have to put people at the heart of the business and we have to put their well-being at the heart of it. So that two-day program, people left that program saying it was more about their personal lives that it had impacted than their professional lives. But what it restored was their sense of being able to take responsibility for their well-being. They had new tools, new practices. So I think human resources is now transforming into, how do we have chief flourishing officers? How do we have chief energy officers in organisations, where we're fostering the potential and the well-being of those people that put their hearts and minds into the business every day. And I think young people are moving out of corporate entities because they don't feel that there's a purpose, they don't feel that they have a mission, and they don't feel that they have a place, and they don't feel that they have a say. So I think entrepreneurs, which I am myself, need support. They need training in this inner work that we've been talking about all week. We need to understand what makes us up. We need to understand and how to heal and build our own resilience, not the old sort of stoic and armoured up, but the new resilience like the tree has. So the tree grows tall, and once it's reached its full height, it grows width. And that's what we need. We need breadth and we need width to hold the complexity and the capacity of what we're now to embrace. And so I think this notion that we've been talking about and this imperative of regenerative education is going to be based on building our resilience, radical resilience, and building agency in our young people, like Raya on the call today, and in our team, Raya, who has that agency, who's developing that agency to go out in the world and say, this is how it will be. This is my mandate. This is my commission. And this is what I'm here to bring. And so I think that this is the start of an amazing journey that we've started this week. And you'll hear more about how this will evolve in 2021. that business and human flourishing and business prosperity can go hand in hand. And I think that's really the critical nature of leaders being responsible for their people, being responsible for how they impact their environment, being responsible for how they impact their stakeholders and the value chain in every country and every person's life that they impact, and the environment that they impact when they do business. So I'm sure new codes of conduct will come about. And I think our own inner practices and how we start to embrace more compassion, more understanding, and start to regenerate that healing aspect of our people so that they can unlock their potential in every organisation. So thank you for the opportunity of speaking. And I just really want to finish off by saying I think flourishing is a notion that many people are using. I've seen HSBC Bank using it. I've seen this word everywhere. When I started with this notion of the Flourish Initiative, the name of my business, one of the things that's very important, I think, that we all have to take heed of is flourishing doesn't happen in and of itself. Mother Nature has a force, and the force of nature that comes through crisis and has incredible resilience. But for us humans, we can get very complacent and conditioned and adaptive to our habitual practices and the mechanized world we've lived in. So flourishing will take a huge initiative, and that's our agency and our intention and our vision for the third horizon and living inside of that possibility. So I want to leave you with that, and I would love to pass on to Melina and Lewis for our next piece.
Thank you, Karen. Luis, can you share the screen, please?
Yes.
Thank you for that, Karen, because actually it fits very well with what I am trying to explain with my presentation. I am a biologist, and I studied evolutionary biology, and I had to pass through lots of processes to understand why I brought and I am bringing this knowledge to the world. And I loved you saying that life flourishes, because for me, the main life principle and how life creates conditions conducive to life is because life flourishes, solving the needs of the moment. And that's a completely whole different space of how we are living and nourishing and actually putting us in relationship with everything. Can you put next, please? And I love also that because it's only finding our essence. This is me when I was 3 years old, and from that space of experience of life, I arrived to understanding this mandala is a mandala of my soul, of me, of my intention, and actually it's kind of finding my essence that I could arrive to understand and to put in how to evolve, how we can evolve, and that's my business now. How to share this knowledge of evolution with everybody. So next. And this evolution, we have thinking normally as one organism that had been changing and now arrived to something. But every step of that evolution is actually 100% finished. Like even if we are evolving, we are 100% finished, and every species on the planet is at the same point. Everybody. And something that we don't really get in how we are evolving is that, can you change it? Is that this is happening every moment. Next, Luis. And this is happening because I changed it, okay, because we are context dependent. And can you go back again a little bit? Just this is the DNA, and DNA is twisted and unfolded many times, and that's the way that it is actually active. And this activity is ruled by proteins, and those proteins are ruled by the external metabolism of the cell, which are or is conditioned by everything that we are feeling, everything that we are experiencing as organisms. So when we think about that we are commanding our genes, that's totally another paradigm. There are many authors talking about this. Next. And this make put us in a way that we are co-creators of our evolution. And this evolution, for example, the sponges, they are 5 different kinds of cells that are they can live independently, but actually when they are together, they form this structure, and this structure is something bigger than them. And we can go with how they are doing that, how they are actually collaborating in such a deep way, like a microscopic cell that can create this huge structure, macroscopic structure. Next. And what they do actually is to dream this structure, is to go further and deep listening into what they can imagine of themselves. It's the same way that dinosaurs dreamt about flying, and now we have dinosaurs flying everywhere. So we are connecting with the deep listening of who we are, and trying to find that. Next, we are going into an empty space, into a vacuum of what is supposed to be outside, or what is the information coming from outside. And I want to remember this deep listening Carolina was talking about 2 days ago, on who are we listen. And this is part of what is going on. Like, we want to come back to something that will really tell us to whom listen, how to listen, and who are we next, and to find the essence of ourselves. And to find this essence is this space of deep listening, deep listening, deep listening, to be able to take action. When something will appear that will pull us in action, we have to go for it next. And we want to, catch our fish, or, like, give the hand to somebody, or a hug to somebody, or acknowledge to ourselves, wow, we are doing it great, or ask for forgiveness, or run the business we always wanted, or finish the business we had already. And this listening will really be the space of creation. We are co-creating all the big structures that we want to have and to enjoy, and for that, next, we want to be interdependent. We want to be into the understanding of if I am doing something from my essence, this means that I am relieving the group, the whole group, from doing what I have to do, from this part of this story, of my part of this story. So if I can inform many people in how to evolve, this will flow the information, and everybody will grasp it. And in this way, in this generosity of being who I am, I will see the order emerge, and the self-organizing structures that we want, and the regeneration we want, emerging everywhere in the world. So connecting deeply with our essence next is the way of understanding the relationships as a reciprocity, as a I give myself to the world. I am not transactional relationship based. I am just being myself. And being myself will bring us a huge point of coevolution for our species. And I really appreciate it, Stena, when you were presenting the Aihonui, because it's the promise that we give to the world and to ourselves and to our loved people and loved animals and plants and planet, of being who we are, and being who we are, and being in contact with that essence, and really listening what mother is telling us, what is going on in the field, what everyone is telling us. We are going to evolve, to co-evolve together. And that's the amazing part of this ecological point of this, because we are educating ourselves as this powerful evolutionary step. So that's what we really want for everyone. Luis.
And today time has liquefied and evaporated. Nonetheless, I would like to briefly go over some ideas of how education can actually surface and how education is currently changing. And hopefully we have time for a great example from Raya. But as we have heard, nature, our connection with nature is essential. So education has to start embracing an aspect where we can walk into nature to learn. Nature is the one that cares for us and gives us the deep messages. Nonetheless, we have right now a predicament. This is our educational style. And it has nothing to do with structures in nature. It has nothing to do with discovery. It has nothing to do with the emergence and the feeling of love. It has to do with information. In order to generate a shift, we need to start changing the learning environment. And that's already happening. Classes need to start shifting, and needs to start shifting from the indoors to the outdoors. And in this process, teachers and the structures in leadership need to shift from hierarchical to circular, from structures of co-evolution, of co-learning, where teachers can learn from students, students learn from teachers, and we all learn from nature. And this way we can start creating an educational system that evolves continuously with the natural environment and with nature. In that process, teachers shift from becoming people that teach to becoming people that guide, that mentor. Teachers and educators, as well as parents, which for me are the lost teachers, need to become the mentors for discovery, that guides to discovery and to learning, more than the ones that impregnate information. And in that process, they will help with the tools we have on how to interpret our world, what emotions are associated, and how to relate all life together. And this includes the breaking up of the subject areas as we see them today. That's another fragmentation. Art, science, math, literature is all part of the same expression of life. So we need to start blending knowledge in order to understand the mathematics of art and nature, in order to start understanding the creative expression of science and knowledge, in order to build a way of thinking that's interconnected, that is lived from classrooms outside or living experiences. And awe and discovery has to become a way to learn, because like in this picture, these students are learning not only of their bioregion, in this case in the Amazon basin, but they're outside at night looking for caimans, and they learned how to collect it respectfully, thank it, and look at their smiles, their awe, they're surprised. They're educating their minds, they're educating their bodies, and they're educating their hearts. And this is something that's essential in this process. So we definitely need to bring the classrooms to the living world. And some examples of things that are happening today. Forest kindergartens is one wonderful example that's actually not new. It comes from the 50s in the Scandinavian countries, as they realize the importance of maintaining this connection and this relationship with nature. But they're starting to sprout all over the world. And this is one way of gathering small children and giving them the opportunity to connect. There's other examples. This is a learning ecosystem project-based learning, the Agora School in Holland. And it's a school that has no classes, a school that only has mentors and has exploration spaces. And actually they have integrated their whole city as their learning ecosystem. And the city and the mayors and all the infrastructure in the city and nature has become just the playground to learn and explore. There's also other examples, expeditionary learning, where learning doesn't happen in the room. We do expeditions to discover with intention, both to wilderness areas or to natural areas and the city. So that's another model that's emerging. Wilderness learning, obviously, is one of the ways of traversing the territory, learning and getting inspired by it, and getting knowledge and wisdom from the territory and the cultures that are there. Regenerative learning centers that are sprouting also in different parts. And the Regenerative Communities Network is doing an incredible work on building connections between regenerative learning centers to create a learning passport, like Edward mentioned, where knowledge is acquired by doing, by living, by learning in real life. And on the other hand, this is what we hope to see bioregional learning regions, bioregional learning centers, where we're not talking about one center, but we're talking about a network of learning centers within bioregions that allow us to understand our own territory and allow us to become agents of regeneration in our land. And this is how we start bringing and reconnecting children, nature, and start falling back in love with the earth. So in order to hear a little bit, we have 5 minutes, and I think we might, if we can stretch it, I would love to hear Raya tell us a little bit about what she's doing and how youth and the feminine energy is pushing forward with ideas that help us reconnect. Raya?
Thank you, Luis. I think we've just been having a conversation on the side. I think given just the short time frame left, unfortunately, we've run out, but that's okay. We're going to dive into all of that tomorrow. So for everybody watching, please, do your best to attend tomorrow's session. And I would love to give my all to the answer to that. Edward, I'll give it back to you just now.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, we discussed with Raya that she needs more time and she's opening tomorrow. So we'll give the space tomorrow and learn from her beautiful initiative. I would like to thank you all. I'm just going to pass it right over to Jim because we are really short of time now. But I think this has been such a powerful session. I'm sure if we give another hour, people will stay on it. But respecting the time allocation that we had given to us, Jim, over to you. This has been such a powerful session. Be here tomorrow. We have a few surprises for all of you. Jim.
What can I say, folks? What can I say? Is Tina still with us? There you go.
Yeah.
Tina, I just want to acknowledge your presentation of all the sessions we've had on Humanity Rising over 117 days. You were the first one that took us to the primordial. And I just want to acknowledge that. And I want to thank you for that. On behalf of all of us, today was the most profound session so far. Up until today, we were like playing in the waves of the ocean. And Tana, you took us to the bottom of the ocean. And I don't know another way to put it. I don't mean to flatter. I don't mean to be excessive, but that is just, I believe, the truth of the matter. And I think I would definitely like to be in touch with you for maybe some additional presentations, because Ed, that's the bottom line. And we just to take a moment, and I know we're running out of time, but if you think about Kate Rayworth's donuts, it's brilliant within the context of a human-centric, basically Western world. And we know we've got to get there. But what I realized today is that donut economics is only a halfway house. It's only a halfway house. It's the direction, no doubt about it. Kate has revolutionized our thinking by offering the simplicity of a donut. But what we've seen today is that donut, if you want to go 3 horizons out, has to be inverted. And at the center has to be the mother. And the outer circle is the human. And I thought it was just brilliant the way you said that the space in between is our commitment to rejuvenating Earth and life.
Mm.
And and then I think it was Carolyn who followed up. I thought, you were the brilliant after story that, what that means is that we have to construct an economic way in which revenue is rewarded for how much you nurture life. Just think, everyone, about that as the model. And the Bill Gateses of the world and the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, Jeff Bezoses of the world would only become billionaires if they served life. That's the way forward, both the donut economics and the primordial economics. And then what you said after that, Karen, was the obvious point that what that means is we need chief flourishing officers. We need to turn business completely on its head. And chief financial officers would be subordinate to the chief flourishing officers, because the whole point of the enterprise is to enable life to flourish. And that, as was just pointed out, is evolution. And that brings us full circle back to Tina and the primordial mind. So everyone, we knocked it out of the park today, as we say in American baseball. And I just salute each and every one of you. And Ed, thank you so much for convening this session. And we're gonna finish up tomorrow. Tomorrow will be day 5. And starting at 5:00 p.m. Central European Time. Thank you all. Thank you all. This is the way forward. This is the pathway forward. Bye, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.